We have some breaking news this morning. A Southwest Airlines flight headed to Phoenix from Nashville is returned to BNA shortly after takeoff because it hit birds. Our photographer Vincent Bradford is at the airport right now. You can see the tarmac from this live video coming into us. It's unclear where the plane affected by the bird strike has been taken. Here's what the airline is telling us, though. Quote, Flight 577 hit at least one bird shortly after takeoff. The captain safely returned that flight to Nashville, and the plane has been taken out of service for maintenance and a review. The airline says they're going to be working with those passengers to get them to Phoenix as quickly and safely as possible, and we're happy to tell you no injuries were reported in that scary situation. Amy?
We've got more breaking news now. Police are investigating a shooting in Germantown. Let's get right to News Channel 5's Dan Kennedy this morning. And Dan, this is a complicated story. The suspect in this shooting apparently are being looked for 3 other crimes in the city.
Amy, we're talking about a crime spree overnight that terrorized parts of the city, and they targeted innocent victims in all of these. What's scary about this is this could have happened to just about anyone. Their fourth and final incident of the evening happened here at this intersection in Germantown. The suspects, by the way, still on the run. Now, CSI is out here. They have this 3D scanners. They're trying to preserve the scene, hopefully use it later for prosecution and in a court of law against some of these suspects if they're ever caught. And you see the car here. This is the victim's vehicle, and outside it a couple evidence markers, including over by evidence marker number 1, a shell casing. It was about 3:30 this morning. The victim pulled up to this intersection when he became the victim all of a sudden of what's being called a bump and rob. So that's when the suspects essentially just purposefully crash into his car with the intention of getting him to get out and check out the damage. That's exactly what happened. And when he got out of his car, the suspects robbed him and ultimately shot him. We talked with one eyewitness who was pulling up to the scene in his concrete truck that he drives every morning. And he says had he acted a bit quicker, he says he would have tried to stop those suspects from leaving.
As I was coming across the road, they didn't move, so I went to go around them. And as I went around, the fella that got shot, he was blowing the horn, started blowing the horn at me. So I just kind of stopped a little bit. And as I stopped, I heard the gunshot and seen the 2 individuals jump back in their vehicle and take off down 2nd Avenue North right here. So I stopped and backed up, and this guy was bleeding out of his shoulder.
That's Kyle Phillips. You heard him talking about how the victim was bleeding from his shoulder. That's where he was shot. He was transported to the hospital with serious injuries. Kyle, the man you just heard from, actually wrapped a makeshift tourniquet around the victim's shoulder until police could arrive, so he potentially helped save this man's life. Again, serious injuries, but I'm told he's expected to survive. We're going to keep an eye on that and also the search for the suspects. That's the story from here, the fourth of these scenes overnight. Blake Rosnowski joins us live from where these suspects targeted someone else just minutes prior to this. Blake?
Yeah, Dan, as you mentioned, very scary situation because these all appear to be random people. It all happened within just about an hour, and it happened all across the metro area. So these people really took off on this crime spree. So let me break it down for you, because the first incident happened around 2:30 a.m. That was on Glastonbury Road at an apartment complex. That's where a female victim arrived at that complex, and she was approached by 3 men who robbed her. She says they left in a silver Nissan SUV. After that, just about 10 minutes later at a Days Inn on Murfreesboro Pike, a male victim says he was approached by 2 men who say they had a gun and demanded his belongings. He says that they took off without a vehicle, just on foot from that scene. The third incident, that's where I am right now, that happened around 3 a.m. and that was on Elm Hill Pike at the Terrace Park Townhomes. A male victim says he was waiting on a ride in the parking lot when 3 men armed with handguns walked up to him and told them that they were going to rob him. He complied through the whole thing, got on the ground, they patted him down, and they walked away with his belongings, but then they decided to walk back over one of those men and shoot the male victim in the leg. He was taken to the hospital and he is expected to be okay. But again, he says that they took off in a silver SUV that was a Nissan. So very similar suspect descriptions as well as very similar vehicle descriptions. And that's what police are going off of this morning. We're hoping to hear whether or not we can get more detailed description on those suspects. I'm told that there are several security cameras right here at this complex. So as soon as we know more on that, we'll be sure to pass that along. Live in Donaldson, Blake Rosnowski, News Channel 5.
Thanks, Blake. A call for help in the search for the body of Joe Clyde Daniels. Dixon County Sheriff Jeff Bledsoe is asking for home security video footage from April the 3rd through the 6th. There are 17 specific roads the deputies are looking for videos of, like Garners Creek Road. That's where the Daniels lived. Now, we have a list of all those roads on newschannel5.com right now. Take a look at that. Now, Joe Clyde was reported missing 2 weeks ago. His parents are charged in his death. We're working to find out what charges could be filed after a big fight between students. This happened at Johnson Alternative Learning Center on 2nd Avenue South. Police tell us an officer right there had to intervene. Now, some students had to be checked out by paramedics, but thankfully no one had to go to the hospital.
And a homicide investigation out west with potential ties to Middle Tennessee. Police in Southern California found 3 bodies inside a parked Jeep that had Montgomery County tags. Burbank police are only saying the 3 are adults and that the bodies were decomposing. Montgomery County Sheriff's Office says it has not been notified about this investigation. Barbara Bush was the wife of one president and the mother of another president and governor. The former First Lady passed away at the age of 92. On Sunday, the family announced that she would no longer receive medical treatment after spending a long time in the hospital. She had 6 children. Her son, President George Bush, said, "Our souls are settled because we know hers was." We'll take a closer look at Mrs. Bush's contributions to our nation and the tributes pouring in coming up in our next half hour. All right, tax procrastinators, you can breathe a sigh of relief.
A last-minute little break for you. You now have until midnight tonight to file your tax returns. That's because of a glitch on the IRS website that caused portions of it to go down for several hours yesterday. The situation left many people in a panic and some accountants working overtime. One Brentwood enrolled agent says this isn't the first time she had problems with the IRS website.
Keep in mind, every year more and more people are electronically filing. So even though they're pushing everyone to do that, I think the website's not really designed for it.
The IRS is telling people just file your taxes like normal if you need to today, whether that's electronically or on paper. We should get an update around noon today on that hack that likely took down the state's standardized test. Students across Tennessee were unable to take TN Ready test for a second day yesterday, but this isn't anything new. The tests have been plagued with problems since their introduction. The constant hiccups have lawmakers now calling for the Education Commissioner, Candace McQueen, to resign.
But we have been blaming the testing companies over and over. This is the second testing company. It's time to quit blaming the testing company and blame the people who are selecting the testing company, and that's the Commissioner of Education. We've had enough, and it's time for her to go.
Monday, there were login issues, and yesterday, officials say the vendor they used for TN Ready tests had been hacked.
It is a requirement that can be a headache.
A bill to end vehicle emissions test is one step closer to reality this morning. The House approved it this week. The tests are required to help reduce air pollution in 6 counties, 5 of which are right here in our area. The lawmakers say the state is already meeting federal air quality health standards.
It's always the middle that pays the cost, and I'm tired of that and I want it stopped.
Lawmakers say a study is being conducted right now to maintain air quality standards if they ever get rid of the emissions test officially.